starting. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you here today. Thank you for being there. So this is the first panel of our 3 days event in Paris, the Scale Up Fair. So this is a recruitment event to encourage the candidates in our network to join some great scale-ups. And that's great because today we have 3 representatives of 3 hyper-growth companies, which is the topic of today. So we have Ferrary-Simon from Scaleway, Alexandre Pachulski from Talentsoft, and Olivier Loverde from Innovorder. So maybe I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, and then we're gonna start talking about how it is like to work in a hyper-growth company. Catherine, I'll let you start.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much, Maya and France Digitale, for having me here today. I'm calling in from Scaleway. It's a cloud computing company here based in Paris with offices all over Europe and even beyond. I have about 10 years experience in the tech industry and hypergrowth, dating back to 2010 in Brooklyn, New York, and then going to Serbia and now in France. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Catherine. Alexandre?
Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Pachulski. I'm one of the co-founders and the chief product officer of Talentsoft, which has been a hyper-growth company, and I guess we'll come back on that. It's like 600 employees. We've been created in 2007, and we have just been acquired by a French company, so staying French. And I've recently joined the board of France Digitale, so it's my first event with you guys, with this new position.
Yeah, welcome on board, Alexandre, as a new board member. Hi, Olivier. You're the next.
Hi, everyone. I'm super happy to be here. Thanks so much, Maya, for having us today, and France Digitale for organizing this event. So I'm the CTO and one of the co-founders of Innovorder. Innovorder is a leader in digital solutions in France for the food service industry and counts some of the largest players in the commercial and institutional catering sectors. We have thousands of locations deployed, hypergrowth startup, we'll talk about this a bit later, and almost 1% of France using our platform every day.
Thank you, Olivier. So thank you to all of you to be here together and share your experience. For those who are interested in joining your company, we already put some links on the chat to present all the open positions. I'm not talking to the people who are watching. You can say hi in the chat and ask some question. If you want to ask some question, but you don't maybe speak that well English, or you're maybe too shy, do not hesitate to talk in French, and maybe we can also give you some answers in French if you need to. But do not hesitate to interact with us and ask some question directly. We will try to answer it right away. So today the topic, it is to understand how it is like to work in a hypergrowth company. So my first question is very simple. It's what it is an hypergrowth. What is it? How do you define an hypergrowth company, and how is it so special? Is it so special? Maybe you want to start, Alexandre, because you just made an exit, so maybe you know the whole story of a company.
The whole path.
Growing. Exactly.
Well, according to me, hypergrowth means 2 things. It means that suddenly you double or triple your size in like a 12 months term. Most of the time after fundraising. That's what happened 2 or 3 times for Talentsoft. We raised money in 2013, 15 with Goldman Sachs, 18. And in 15, we went from 200s to 400s. So when you double in 1 year, and obviously you double all the figures after fundraising, it shows that you can start talking about hypergrowth, because it means, and that's my second point, hypergrowth means in a way you're not ready for that. It means that things are going in a way too fast. And so you cannot organize things the way you could in another company where you plan, you execute, you got the time to think and brainstorm. Hypergrowth means you run and you just hope that the decision you made on a day-to-day basis are the best, but really you don't have so much time to think about them. This is what's an hypergrowth for me.
You told me that you have a kind of theory about the multiplying the size by 3. Like it's a big change each time the company some 3 times.
Yeah, according to me, and that's Yuval Noah Harari telling it in his Sapiens book. Each time you triple, in a way, it's a kind of new humankind. It's a new culture, new habits. And we tried to keep and protect our culture. Big mistake. Let it go. You will, in a way, lose your culture. And the whole game is all about recreating the culture you want to live in. But you got to recreate it with new people, new workforce, new habits, new figures. So it's a recreation each time. Yes.
So Olivier, Alexandre was talking about going from 200 to 400 and then to 1,000 people. I know that Innovorder is a bit smaller, but is it the same? How do you define hypergrowth?
Yeah, it's basically the same. What we saw is we grew from 30 to 70 people in 1 year. Organization changed 3 times. Of course, we did many failures, but how can you be successful without learning by yourself? So the key thing, I think, in hypergrowth is the people had a lot of opportunities to grow and learn together. So that's why we are focusing on your culture, on maximizing growth, but without sacrificing people. So it's a bit of a challenge. Alexandre told that culture is really hard to keep, and that's true. And we needed to adapt our methodology. So we went to the lean management, which is a technology, which is a methodology used by Theodore, by Conto. So basically, it's training people on it, having a lot of training. That's the key things for keeping the pace with high growth. So yeah, it's super hard to keep it because roles are evolving, managers may change, and we need to adapt every 3 months.
So you mean that every 3 months the organization changes? Yes. So that you can have a very different kind of position, like in January or in June, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like we recruited people 3 months ago, and 3 months afterward, when they come to the company, it's not the same role and it's not the same manager because things are evolving. So we need to adapt and we need to make it right. So people can be can work great. So first of all is protect the people and trying to give more information. I mean, the best information you can give. It's very important because everything is moving so fast. You need to have a great communication here.
Okay, so we do understand that culture is very, very important in doing the growth, the hypergrowth. So we have your point of view. I think that Catherine, your point of view could be even more interesting because I think that you are the only one from our speakers who was an employee in a hypergrowth company, because we have 2 founders, and you are very important because you work on the culture, but you have been there. So maybe I can ask you, how does it feel to be employed in this kind of company?
Well, it's complicated, but I can tell you that it's actually the reason that I do this job right now today is thanks to my experiences in hypergrowth companies as an employee. So my first experience actually was back in 2010 in Brooklyn. It was a scale-up that had been recently acquired, so it's a familiar situation, I think, to our other speakers, and also gone public. And so almost overnight, the founders had all this money to invest and a huge pressure to grow. They needed to meet their numbers and fill the seats. And I had joined in the first 200 people as a consultant. But within a few short weeks, we were growing so fast that I was delivering onboarding presentations to new employees at a rate of about 10 people per week. So it was so fast that new floors seemed to be populated overnight in this giant building in Dumbo, New York. So there's some upsides and some downsides to that. The first, I guess, is that you might think it's quite overwhelming to not know your colleagues 1 week to the next. But on the other hand, it's a very enriching and incredible opportunity to learn from so many different people from different backgrounds. Especially when there's a pressure to hire at that rate, founders are pretty careful about who they choose to come in the company. They're really picking the creme de la creme. So you find yourself colleagues all of a sudden with people who have been working in fancy, famous companies all over the world, and you have an opportunity to learn from them and share experiences and kind of think of it as a crash course in everything startup, everything business. So as long as you go in with not too much expectation of perfect stability, as Olivier and Alexandre mentioned, of course, no one can do it perfectly. It's a really giant feat to grow at such a rate. So rather go in thinking, what is it that you can get out of this situation? How lucky you are to be in an environment that is so rich of top talent that you can learn from, rather than think, oh, the procedure is not perfect in this one area, and oh, I don't get reimbursed for my expense on time, because everyone is really there to do their best and bring their best every day. And if you can, profit from that and take advantage, you can take that experience almost anywhere else. Kind of like they say, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. If you can make it in a hyper-growth scale-up, you can take that and make it anywhere.
Okay, so you have to be flexible and prepared to understand, and then it is a good way to learn a lot of things, if I understand. So we have a question from Stan. I'm aiming at scale up. What will be your advice to join within 200 first people of the company?
Well, the first thing is what I reference now is just to not come in with too many expectations, to rather be open to a really big challenge ahead and be excited about the experiences that you will have and the people that you will meet and that you will learn from. Change is the only constant in a scale up. So you can't come in expecting what you already know, and you will always have something more to learn. So if you bring your growth mindset, you will really do well. You'll have success. And that's the same thing when you're interviewing for this kind of a role. You need to bring this growth mindset, this eagerness to learn, and also some humility that you will never stop learning, and that you are fortunate to be in this environment. Sometimes this might be a cultural difference, but in France, sometimes candidates skip this step of showing their motivation to join the company. They seem like we would be lucky to have them and not vice versa. And it really needs to be a match. So you need to show that you are a fit for the company and the company is a fit for them. This is the attitude that I look for. Does that answer your question?
We lost Maya.
Yeah.
We don't hear you.
Maya, your microphone is mute.
What I could just add for Stan, waiting for Maya to come back, is that it's also, according to me, the experience, it's more about joining a band, joining an adventure, and it's less about occupying a job or reaching a position. So it means that in a way, if you are more than 23 and it's not your first job, it's a lot about unlearning what you've learned in previous experiences, because it's going to be different, and people usually, they are less attached to a title, less attached to a job description that most of the time do not exist yet. And so it's more about being there, really, like Eckhart Tolle is saying, it's living the present moment and trying to catch what's got to be done at a given time and how you can contribute and help a team, less about your job objectives. So it's an interesting experience. If you love meditation, it's all about being in the present moment.
Sorry, I lost my microphone. I was mute. But thank you, Alexandre, to keep the thing going.
maybe before giving that much advice, because basically will be the end of the conversation to give you as much advice as possible, I think it's really great to understand what could be the dark side of this hypergrowth thing, because we do understand that this is a good opportunity to learn a lot. And if you are flexible, it's maybe the best way to learn. But I think that from an employee, but also from a founder point of view, there should be a lot of dark sides.
As I am concerned, I consider it can be, in a way, and the word is pretty tough, but I do it on purpose. It could be violent. Why could it be violent? Because you can really be the star of one day, being the person that have saved the customer, that have saved many situations, that has got the expertise, that everyone is coming to meet. And from one day to another, when you double or triple size, you can be totally diluted in the workforce. And suddenly people are coming less to you. They don't know you. And it happened to me in the stairs, someone asking me, oh, hello, what do you do? And your ego is not prepared to that. You're the founder, you're supposed to be known, and suddenly, no, because there are so many people. So obviously it's not all the candidates, but it's just an illustration to say from one day to another, it's like show business. You cannot disappear, but you can really be diluted. So it's one of the dark side. It's a possible situation.
Do you have anything to share about it, Olivier or Catherine?
Yes. So I would say that one of the dark side is about delegating. We always say it's not a sprint but marathon. This idea is especially true in hypergrowth environment. As companies scaling, it's hard for people who are having a lot of responsibilities to fully delegate. So the company is scaling very fast, so they don't delegate. So they have more and more links to all the people coming, and they tend to have too much on their shoulder, and they might get burned out. So as founder, we must protect people and help them to grow as a company grow. So it's really hard to make learn people about delegation. So it's only by failure that we'll get it, and I think it's one of the dark side.
Okay. We have a super great question in the chat, so maybe we're gonna answer this one. So that's true that when we are talking about hypergrowth, we tend to sell to the employees a kind of adventure because you don't know what it's gonna be in 6 months. And so Camille is asking, at which level the company should understand that all employees don't necessarily come for an adventure? Maybe never.
I think the first thing is they shouldn't come if they're not ready for an adventure. But the second part, because obviously I'm very pro employee, I'm the advocate of the employee. That's my whole job. I'm the global people person here. On the other hand, the founders, if I may, also need at some point to consider this culture earthquake, trembling tectonic plates that can be shaky. And earlier on than I've seen as common practice, hire someone like me to be really into the culture and just be there. In the beginning, it can just be to throw around ideas and just to be a confidant, but always be a second opinion about how certain decisions and actions can impact the employees, and be a balance on the result that you want to obtain for the business and the impact on the people. And a lot of what I've seen with founders, they love their people, but you can't be good at everything. You know, you can't be perfect at the CTO, perfect at the CEO, perfect at operations, perfect at recruiting, and still really consider the impact of all of your decisions. So I recommend to companies much earlier on that I think is common practice to take someone like me, who can be a bit of a devil's advocate and a partner in certain decision making. Because it's true that at some point, maybe you came for the adventure, but you do expect some professionalism at some point, whatever that might be. So either you move on and new people come and you have more challenges, but at some point you want to professionalize things, and that can take 1 year or it can take 20 years, depending on how the management is done. I challenge a little bit the founders here on how much you'd like to hold on to, and how much you share with a people officer, for example.
I agree with you, Catherine. It's also a maturity curve that comes with the hypergrowth. At the very beginning, the first person that joined Talentsoft and was not up to 200%, I was kind of shocked, saying, wow, what is happening? We are losing the soul of Talentsoft, and it's not normal. I can tell you that now. I know that not everyone is coming for an adventure, because it's got you got to honestly to grow. Thinking about that at the very beginning, it's just your life. And when someone is just coming to work, it's like the person you love saying, I don't love you anymore. It's a shock. And after some time, you understand that you got to offer an environment where everyone's got to find what he's looking for. And it's not necessarily an adventure. It's not necessarily a purpose in life. And you got to accept that. You got to accept diversity in that matter. Still, I would recommend for hypergrowth to be ready in a way to be checked a little, because once again, they are not stable environments. But we are okay. It's not a cult. It's not a sect. It's just some work for some people. But Catherine, you're right. It's a weird environment. So in a way, you still have got to be ready for some efforts that you shouldn't commit in some of them more stable environments.
Yeah, and also around the culture, it's such a buzzword these days, but I find that even more at the core of culture are just a few basic values that, if you say are like non-negotiable, can still be the thread through your culture. Like, the culture can change in many ways, but if you have like a few really non-negotiable core values, I find it's a bit more sustainable, this kind of growth. And I was recently at a Swiss company that started as a startup with a bunch of students out of St. Gallen University in Switzerland. And they managed to maintain exactly the same culture for 20 years, going from 5 to we were 400 people when I left. Now, it wasn't hyper growth, but it is an example of how they really locked down on these values early on and never let go. They were really, really strong on holding on. And I think it can be possible, but hyper growth makes it very hard. Unless you hire someone like a chief people officer who I think can partner with you and help take some of that weight and that pressure off and let you focus on being a founder and doing the hard stuff.
Olivier, you say that you are 70 in your company today?
Yes, yeah.
And have you already hired someone like Catherine to help with culture? Not yet.
We are currently looking for head of people right now. So,
okay.
So if you are looking for something on the market, we are recruiting.
This is actually a position at Innovorder. So okay. And Alexandre, when have you decided to hire someone in HR at Talentsoft?
Well, it came with, I was the HR of Talentsoft at the very beginning, because I was an HR consultant before, so just trying to apply what I've told before. And it came quite late, actually, after the first acquisition. They had an HR. I was doing the HR with a colleague that was also a former HR. So it was both informal and when we acquired the first company, then the position in a way has been created, and that was the very beginning. And now we got a chief people officer with a 25 people team. So we've learned too.
Yeah, we understand that during the hypergrowth, it's very important. So you talk a lot about your culture and your values. This is basically the first thing you told me when we prepared this event. Like, what do you do to prevent the bad sides of the hypergrowth? Clearly, we have these points. And so we have a question from Laila, and she's asking, what do each of you consider as your core values?
As I'm concerned, Catherine, please.
Okay. For me, the absolute core, number one, is trust. You can't really have teamwork and really reach the results that you want without trust. It's total core for me. Trust means that you can give autonomy to people, that they feel respected and valued because they're able to take decisions and make progress on their own with your trust again. Feedback, when you have trust, you're able to exchange feedback. And community is one that I kind of add on. Everything else is related to trust, but community, being able to build community and help people feel visible and connected is very important, ever more so after this interesting year and a half that we've all had, is building community and making sure people feel connected. Those are mine. Put them in the chat.
For me, it's about, first of all, it's about honesty. It's a stumbling block of every interaction, so it's super important. Then there is a word, but I don't know how to say it in English, so I would say it in French. It's called bienveillance, which is fundamental. And then learning and growing together, which is also key here.
Thanks, Olivier. I was looking for the bienveillance term in the Google Translate.
I don't think there's a word in English for that.
It's kindness.
Benevolence.
Okay.
Yeah, benevolence, but I didn't know this word. So let's talk about benevolence. And it's funny because it was also written kindness. And when you're talking about kindness, it can be a little, I don't know how to say that, but cheesy term where at the end it's more. But it's extremely important because if you create this kind of environment, like Olivier said, you authorize people to be themselves. So with the second value coming with that, according to me, is vulnerability. Because you got to be vulnerable and admit being vulnerable when you are in an hypergrowth, because you got to admit you don't know, because most of the time you don't know. And when your all efforts are about hiding the fact that you don't know, you won't do an hypergrowth. You will do a kind of weird animal trying to pretend knowing when it doesn't know. And so vulnerability, and as I am concerned as a citizen, it's also about curiosity. Because you start an adventure, you start relationships, you start creativity, innovation with curiosity. When you are curious about people, when you are curious about technology, about everything, then normally the rest will come. So that would be my values.
Super interesting. So we actually have 3 minutes left, so the time goes very fast. Actually, I have so many questions still. If you have some question behind the chat, please ask it now, because then we're gonna finish. My last question for you will be, so we already started talking about it, but what are your advice for all the candidates who are participating to the Scale Up Fair this week?
I would say that first of all, get to know the company, check our LinkedIn, understand our market, our products, our competitors, know everything about the company. That will help you very much during the hiring process. Do a follow-up mail when you finish the interview process. A lot of candidates are not doing this, but do a follow-up mail by saying thanks for everyone we have met during your interviews. I think it's very important. And don't forget to ask a lot of questions so you can know if the environment is right for you. Yeah, that would be my free advice.
Totally agree. As someone who is there actually responding to candidates from time to time, I can tell you I'm really shocked when I don't get a thank you email. I was taught to do that in college. I just think it's totally normal to do, and it's really respectful, and you've got to do it. And another thing that nobody does these days anymore, I don't know why, is the cover letter. I guess at some point it became this long, annoying exercise you had to do in school when you apply for a job. It doesn't need to be 200 words. It just has to be, I'm applying because your company is really interesting to me and I want to be a part of what you're doing. I think I can bring A, B, and C to the table. Thank you for looking at my resume. It's like 2 sentences, 3 sentences, it just means the world to me to see how you communicate and how you interact and how you think. And it makes me spend more time on your application.
Well, what I could add on what has been said, and I totally agree, it would be also probably about not being shy when you present yourself. It's not about trying to describe a resume, a path, skills, because at the end of the day, you will meet new situations, new problems you've never faced. So trying to pretend that you've got already the solutions to problems you've never met, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm more interested into stories, the story about someone that led this someone here at this very moment of the company, and why would it make sense for her or him, for us. And it's like love affairs, relationships. It's all about, is there a match? And candidates should be more focused about this match and trying to see how it goes and show that it could fit. Like when you want to seduce someone without lying, just being yourself. But it's more about finding this match more than reading a resume or pretending being someone else. Makes no sense. Neither in love affairs or in scale-ups.
So to conclude, if we had to sum up what it is like to be recruited in a hyper-growth company, it could be like, it's like joining a relationship, like starting something like a love story.
Yeah.
But at the end, it's also your life and it doesn't have to be an adventure.
Yes.
Be flexible.
We got that now.
Okay, we got that. So thank you. We already took 30 minutes of your time. Thank you very much for being here today. So there are another panels and discussion coming up during those 3 days. So thank you for being here, behind your chat, for your participation. And I hope that we can maybe carry on the discussion another day.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.